Good morning. This is Bill from Curious Cars and Auto House of Naples on a miserable, and I do mean it is an absolutely miserable Florida morning. I mean, it just sucks. The humidity has got to be about 140%. It's probably in the 80s right now. It's still fairly early. It's barely 7 o'clock. And it's just like living inside a bowl of soup or something. I mean, it's the middle of June or getting close to the middle of June, and this is it. We're now in the absolute shit, horrible crap weather. It's here for another few months. There's nothing anybody can do about it. And the really, really smart people have gotten the hell out of Dodge, and I wish to God I were one of them. I'm happy to have this. Well, we'll get into that. But look, I know it's been a while since I've done a video, over a week. You know, I'm in a little bit of a lull right now. Things are changing up. I'm selling my house. I'm liquidating loads of things that I own, which is all shit anyway, and I'm just trying to get back to absolute zero and restart, and we're going to figure out where we go from there. You know, this is a transition. Oh God, I hate it's a transitional time for me, not in the 2022 sense, but in the 1975 sense. And frankly, we're going to see where we all end up in, you know, a month or two. So right now, we're just going to move forward as best we can. I'm going to keep trying to pump out whatever car I run across that interests me, but we've got big future plans on the horizon for things to change up. I don't know what I'm going to do. I got a little place to stay for the moment. It's not permanent, and you know, it sounds freakish, but it's not. I just want to, I'm going to buy a motorhome, and I'm going to figure out where the hell I go from there. And I may end up driving around at least the southeastern United States doing videos, because it's really the only thing that I enjoy doing. And we'll see if we can't find some fun cars that way. But the whole car business thing is just, I don't know. It's just I want to take the cue from, you know, guys like Peter and another friend of mine, Mike, who sold his Bay. It's just weird times in the car business, and it's not that much fun for guys who have been around for a while. And I just feel like changing it up. So I'm not going to do the, you know, Peter highfalutin style, because frankly, I just don't have those kind of funds. But it'll be the Kmart version of that, and it might be soul saving. So we'll see. And a big part of that is probably trying to figure out a way to get the hell out of southern Florida in, you know, this awful, awful time of year. Animals, quiet, nothing, couple rabbits, no goats, no nothing. It's been very, very problematic on the animal front in terms of having something to, you know, to find that's troublesome. They just haven't been out there, which is great for me, but it is always nice to get attacked by something so I can at least show you how vicious and awful animals are. And that's, you know, again, it's just part of the malaise that's going on. I feel like we're entering a new malaise period. Anyway, what do I have today? I've got a 1974 Chrysler New Yorker Brougham, St. Regis Coupe. I mean, if that's not a mouthful, I don't know what is. And this car has been promised for a while, so it's nice to finally have it. It's not as ready as it could be, but I just got sick to death of waiting. So when it came out of the trim shop, I had Dalton do one of his pathetic, you know, 1-hour detail jobs on it. And here we are this morning, and that's going to have to be as good as it gets. So it'll probably have to go back into detail so we can do a shittier job, but at least bring it up a little bit. I'm deep, deep, deep into the coronavirus whiskey, which is good. I call it Corona. It becomes Soviet whiskey or anti-Soviet whiskey. But I hear the coronavirus is making a comeback, so probably good to keep, you know, drinking that. I'm using one of the Curious Car flasks that Penelope has provided. No, I still haven't figured out a way to distribute them. I mean, yeah, I know, man. I know. Look, if you're looking for people who are on the ball and have their shit together, you're on the wrong channel. I promise you. I'm just trying to figure out how to survive till tomorrow so I can keep going. But at some point, I will figure out in the near future how to distribute these damn flasks, and we'll go from there. So what do we have? The coronavirus whiskey. I think there's also monkeypox is going around. I don't know how you get that, and it doesn't sound very nice, but hopefully the whiskey does protect you from that as well. And, with all that being covered, let's just dive directly, leap into this car, and get this video going. So, again, it's a New Yorker. This is a 74. It was the first year of this style, which we'll get into as we go. And it's a very famous nameplate, the New Yorker. It had been around from, there different people say different things, essentially 1940 onward. And it ran continuously all the way through 1996. So it was a big name for Chrysler. And when it was discontinued in 96, it had been, up to that point, the longest running nameplate in American, car history. So it's a pretty big deal. And even though it was discontinued, there's still a load of people who kind of look back and enjoy the New Yorkers and, find it to be something that they want to have. God bless them. And, I feel the same way. It's, you see a lot of Cadillacs out there. You see a lot of Lincolns out there. But the Chrysler products just weren't saved to the same extreme. So when you see one rolling around now, it's kind of a unique experience. Very often the New Yorker was Chrysler's top-of-the-line car. Obviously, there was the Imperial, but that was essentially a separate nameplate. Under the Chrysler name, the New Yorker pretty much peaked it out. And it competed, while the Imperial went up against Cadillac and Lincoln, this car, the New Yorker, it was sort of after the high-end stuff from Oldsmobile, Buick, Mercury. That was the segment that this car was after. And there were some very famous New Yorkers. In the 50s, there was the Town and Country, which, is a bastardization of that now with the minivans. You see those, the Town and Country minivan. In the 50s, the Town and Country was a Woody wagon, which is very collectible today. They also made a Woody convertible, and it was pretty special. Again, I don't know what it is with the world. Everything, I look at all these retro cars coming out. You've got the Mustang Mach-E. You've got this new Volkswagen van. It's all kind of cool in its own way, but it's all celebrating things in the past because it doesn't seem like there's that much to celebrate in terms of things in the future. And I just think it's indicative of where we are as a culture, that people are looking backwards to find out, people are miserable to some extent. Not all, I don't mean, okay, look, we're not all waking up miserable, but there is no doubt that as a culture, we look back to these cars because we're looking back to a time when we think things were better. I think a lot of people get the feeling that we've peaked and that we're on a decline. And I am one of those people. I don't want to be one of those people, but I am one of those people. And I think that's a symptom when we see these new cars coming out that sort of harken back to what I think were probably better days. And I think that's why we're seeing some of that stuff now. But anyway, look, we'll get into this. This is a 9th generation New Yorker. I mean, there's like 14 or 15 generations of them. It's a C-body, full size. It came out in 1974 after many, many years in development. And unfortunately, it came out at precisely the time that we had a oil embargo, the 73 oil gas crisis thing where the price of gas absolutely spiked and people were sort of driven away from full-size cars. And that was a real shame for Chrysler because they had invested so much in this platform. They really wanted to succeed. It comes out and the next thing you know, whammo, people are going for Chevy Vegas and stuff. So it just didn't sell as well as it could, which, of course, had some repercussions for Chrysler in the mid-70s. They ran into all kinds of financial troubles. It wasn't their fault. Nobody really expected gas prices to explode like that. But this was an era when Chrysler was absolutely not only unapologetic, but probably prideful about offering only very large cars. And that showed up, and listen, that bird is going completely insane. And it's loud, and it's probably enormous. I'm going to have to keep an eye on that. But they were very prideful about having only big cars. It showed up in their advertising campaigns, and obviously it didn't help them much in the early malaise period of the 70s. I mean, this thing is 19 and a half feet long. I mean, it's absolutely enormous. It's about 7 inches longer than a 2022 Chevy Suburban. I mean, this is a big sucker, an absolute beast. And it's, again, it wasn't what people were looking for right when the gas crisis hit. By this time, the Imperial, Chrysler's historical flagship, was more or less a dressed-up New Yorker. It had like 4-wheel disc brakes, and it had extra trim stuff and extra interior appointments, but still more or less shared the same platform as this car, and wasn't selling very well. In fact, in 1976, they discontinued this was a big deal for Chrysler to discontinue their flagship Imperial line, and it was replaced essentially by the New Yorker Brougham, which actually, because it basically lessened the price of what was an Imperial, it did sell well in 76 and 77 and helped Chrysler, with their bottom line a little bit. So sales weren't terrible, all things considered. But look, before we get into all of this, let's have a quick look at 1974 and the time when this car was rolling the streets. There was a worsening global recession. Again, gas prices were through the roof. It was the OPEC energy thing. It was just absolutely awful. There was widespread inflation. Driving up the cost of basically everything. I think there was still baby formula on the shelves, but otherwise everything just cost an absolute ton. There were gasoline shortages. There were people waiting in lines to get fuel, which sucked. I was around for that, but I was too young to know what was going on. So as I was sitting, there was a time I was abandoned at a gas station. My parents don't like, well, they're dead now, but they don't like telling or didn't like telling the story. But apparently we were driving down from Chicago. My dad was building a home in Naples, and we were moving down here at my mother's request, of course. The poor guy didn't want to move at all, but apparently I was abandoned. They crashed the car somewhere on the way down, broke one of the windows, the door was dented in. They brought it to a service station in South Carolina somewhere. They took a loaner car and drove off. It was going to be fixed in a few days, but apparently they left me in the back seat of the car, this old Cadillac my dad was driving at the time. And a few miles down the road, my sister said something like, what about the baby? What about William? And the story is, my parents had a big panic thing. They turned around, they went back and got me. But I think they just couldn't figure out how to explain to my sister at the time that they wanted to abandon me to a gas station in South Carolina, where I'd probably grow up named Cletus, wearing a hat sideways and pumping gas in people's car. And frankly, I'd probably have been much happier. It would have been a much better life for me. So I almost wish they'd figured out a way to leave me. But anyway, there it is. Malaise was setting in 74. Richard Nixon, he was essentially forced to resign over Watergate, which became the scandal name for every scandal here on afterwards. Everything's a gate now at this point. And he did that rather than suffer the indignation of being removed. He was the first president to do that. But he was later pardoned by Gerald Ford on all counts, so they couldn't go after him. They had to just let him resign in disgrace and let that be his punishment, which probably was for the best. The rumble in the jungle, if you remember that was the big fight between Ali and Foreman. Ali had been stripped of his title for refusing the draft a few years earlier, and he got it back by knocking out Foreman in the 8th round, and we're in Zaire. That happened in Africa, so it all worked out well for Ali. The 55-mile-an-hour speed limit was instituted, which was an absolute nightmare. They brought it in not for fuel mileage, but I guess actually for fuel mileage. And then, it became, oh my God, everyone's safer. Well, yeah, of course they're safer. They're driving 2 miles an hour on the highway. I mean, I mean, it's a miserable, miserable thing. And yeah, it brought crashes down, but at what cost? At what absolute cost? And it spawned musical acts like Sammy Hagar with his I Can't Drive 55 stuff. And it was just a terrible, terrible thing that, thank God, was eventually repealed and went on to, get back to some kind of normal speed limits. Patty Hearst was kidnapped, if you remember that whole thing. Apparently it was very sad initially, and then it turned out she became some kind of revolutionary and started machine gunning everybody. So, I don't know if that worked out for them or not, but India got a nuclear weapon. I had a chicken vindaloo the other night that could have been considered that. In movies, you had The Sting, if you remember that, with Paul Newman. I want to say Jackie Gleason, but my memory is shit this morning, and I'm half drunk from the whiskey. There was The Exorcist, which was fantastic. Papillon, which... is a good movie, but it just had a little bit too much French shit in it. Blazing Saddles, one of the great movies of all time. Serpico with, what's his face? I think that was Al Pacino. Death Wish came out, which was terrific. We need another Death Wish today. There was one that came out a few years ago. I think I had Bruce Willis in it, but it was absolute shit. It was a real shame. But anyway, apparently crime was spiraling out of control. It was a thing on Americans' minds. And you had that little Polish guy, Bronson, who decided to take matters in his own hand and started shooting people, including Jeffrey. He never shot the people who actually, did crimes against him, but Jeffrey Goldblum was in that. You had The Godfather Part 2, long considered one of the great sequels to any movie, and Murder on the Orient Express. TV-wise, you had Kung Fu with, Grasshopper, David Carradine, who later went on to do some kind of, I don't know, he died in some weird sex act thing, from what I understand, either way, it seemed like an ignominious, ignoble end to David Carradine. But that show was great. I watched that as a kid all the time. You had Kung Fu, you had Kojak, you had The $6 Million Man, which was a big deal to me then. I had that play set as a kid. And I don't know, whatever the hell else was on it, who cares? It just, it was what it was. More importantly, and probably the most important news of the year in 1974, Posh Spice was born, and that is a pretty big deal. So I tell you what, give me a minute to pause, get my shit together. I'm going to have another swig of the monkeypox whiskey, and then we're going to dive directly right into this car. So bear with me one moment. All right, so let's just dive right into the exterior styling of this car, which I think is absolutely terrific. I mean, a lot of Cadillacs and Lincolns from this era did survive, but not really so many New Yorkers. And that's why when I saw this thing, I was up at an auction in North Carolina. This car sat for a long time. I just, I'm finally starting to get to some stuff that's been hanging around. We've got that IROC thing going. That car sat for a year. I've got a Firehawk race car that I'm going to get something done with. That sat for a long time, and we're going to keep the ball rolling. So it's nice to get rid of some of the stuff that's been hanging on. This car sitting was an absolute shame, and it's nice to find. It took nothing to get it going. It had a starter issue, so after 6-7 months of just hanging out, we put a starter in it. It's fine. It even still had cold air conditioning, so this really was one of the good ones, and it was nice to get it going. But anyway, you just don't see that many New Yorkers from this era anymore. They're a bit of a rarity. And despite reviving the 2-lion hood ornament, look at this crazy ornate thing. Look at that. Absolutely awesome. Even with that big, crazy, ornate hood ornament, the car itself was fairly muted. Chrysler resisted the bling that Lincoln and Cadillac was heading towards, and they made a more subdued style, which was interesting for that era, a little bit surprising. They just toned it down, although, well, we'll get into why this one isn't, but not everybody loved it. That was the thing. So people were still looking for the bling offered by Cadillac and Lincoln. Chrysler noticed that, so they rebirthed what what was a 1950s styling package called the St. Regis, and they made the St. Regis Coupe from January 74 onward, and this is one of them. And it was for people who found the traditional New Yorker styling a little bit bland for the era. You know, there was the New Yorker in 74, there was the New Yorker Brougham, and then there was the New Yorker Brougham St. Regis Coupe. Or coupe, as this one is. And they came in sedans, they came in coupes, and they came in wagons. Although the St. Regis thing was coupe only. And here it is in front of us. And it added some extra trim to the car. It used the Spinnaker white paint with gold pinstripes. It had a forward... I don't remember what you call this thing, but the vinyl roof, you know, doesn't go all the way to the back. It's the first 3/4 of it. It added opera windows where the regular New Yorker had actually lowerable side windows. This one now had opera windows that were fixed. So that was a little bit of a, frankly, lessening of utility, but it also looked kind of cool and fit some of the blingy cars of the time. And of course, you got the big Brougham logo on the side of the D-pillars back there. So anyway, very, very neat stuff. You see it has big slab sides, absolutely insane. Again, longer than a modern Suburban. It's got mild front fins, almost like a Lincoln. It's got a V hood, almost like a Lincoln. It's got a horizontal grille that later became a waterfall grille in the later New Yorkers and the Imperials, but this one's horizontal. And it's metal. It's metal and chrome, where Cadillac had gone to plastic. So that, you know, was actually a step up. You've got quad headlamps. You've got these big chrome bumpers, which, you know, despite the new 5-mile-an-hour bumper law, they do fit the car fairly well. I do like the way that the fenders do knife edge forward in front of that. I think it looks all very cool. It's got these very ornate chrome road wheels, they're called, and that was the, you know, high-end optional wheel at the time, which I think looks pretty good, and it was bigger and wider than the standard wheel. You see it has enormous cornering lights up front. You've got a New Yorker script on the back of the fender. You've got interesting sort of stainless rocker panel trim running to the back, dipping down, going into the fender skirts on what are some of the largest quarter panels that I've ever seen on a car. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. This thing takes up so much real estate. You know, the front end arrives long before you do, and the taillights pass well after you've left. So the St. Regis Coupe was essentially to get a little piece of the pimp and mafia market that the New Yorker otherwise had given up. We'll get into the inside as well, where what it had for this St. Regis edition. But all in all, I think it looks absolutely terrific. It's got frameless glass. It's got a row of taillights that spans from left to right. Somebody put little chrome tips on the dual exhaust on this car, which I kept. They're fine. You know, you could remove a screw and pop them off if you want to. But all in all, I just think it looks like a very, very interesting package. And I have to tell you that it does get looks and appreciation because people don't immediately know it. You know, they see Cadillacs all the time, or at least to some extent. But New Yorkers are a little bit of a thing of the past that's a bit more, I don't know, difficult to see. I kind of like the way the fuel door thing pops up too. It's so little. It's surprisingly little, but it's hidden back there, and it's a nice touch. And I do like the very ornate looking taillights. So let's have a look inside the trunk. You see, this one came from Hunter Brothers, which I think is no more. I think there were some Hunter guys in Pueblo, Colorado that had dealerships, but they probably are long gone by now. And whenever I think of Pueblo, Colorado, I think of those ads where they're talking about government publications or something. It has an enormous trunk. You know, Ulf, my German friend who was attacked by the duck, he does airport runs and drives, that sort of thing. And man, does he look wistfully at trunks like this from the 70s, where how much stuff you can actually fit in them. I think the jack is incorrectly put there. That's something Dalton should have seen. It should be going up there in that little spot in front of the spare tire. But you can see, even with this enormous full-size spare tire, there's still a ton of room in this trunk. trunk for whatever you want to stick back there. And that does include toddler. You even put some full-grown children back there, and they'd be absolutely fine. They'd have a ton of room. This one came with all kinds of great documentation, including this weird slide rule thing. Makes me think of the space program from the 70s, you know, some nerdy guy with a white shirt and a buzz cut. And that's, whatever. It came from Pueblo and helps you figure out your fuel mileage. You've got this, owner's manual, which is great. It's got a big sticker on it telling about all the stuff that is paid by the owner, including squeaks, rattles, and normal maintenance. That's all over. You have to fix that stuff now. But either way, there it is then, and that is the owner's manual. You got a Chrysler Plymouth brochure. Nice stuff. Look at that. That's the one I want. Green. Absolutely awesome. But that's just the New Yorker Brougham, and you can see that it has lowered rear windows, not the upper windows, and a whole different vinyl roof setup. So this St. Regis thing did add to it. There's the Town and Country wagon you could get. There's the sedan you could get, and just all of it. Then you get into the Newports and the Fury Grand Coupes and, you know, the lesser cars that they offered at the time. Here's another 74 Chrysler brochure it came with. More Town and Country stuff, and I think we're finally going to get into look at that trailer towing and whatnot. So yeah, all very, this thing would tow the hell out of a trailer. Then we got warranty cards, we got action accents, you got consumer information. I've got a whole over here somewhere. This is all the insurance cards for years, which does, I don't think this is a one owner. I think it's a two owner car, but it's obviously been well kept. And at some point somebody upgraded the stereo. They probably went from 8-track to cassette and put this very cool Jensen in it, which I absolutely love. You also get a really hastily applied jacking sticker back there, and a JCPenney battery warranty sticker that's been put on. And I mean, who doesn't get their batteries from JCPenney anymore? Let's have a look under the hood. And actually, the hood isn't that long. I mean, it's long as hell, but don't get me wrong, but it's not insane the way it is on some of the Lincolns of the era. This is a nice thing. You get a wedge V8. This is a 440 cubic inch. Love it. Absolutely love it. It came standard in the New Yorker, the 440. As the years passed, that went down, of course, because of emissions and stuff. And you ended up with 400. And I don't know if you could get the 383 or not in the New Yorker, but certainly it went down to the 400. But in 74, you got this, the 440, I think 7.2 liters. Very, very peppy. By modern, you know, in 74, they had switched the net horsepower, so it was down to like 230 from 350, but it's still a very torquey, terrific engine. That's going into an A727 3-speed torque flight, fantastic 3-speed automatic from Chrysler, and that runs into an 8 3/4 diff, probably with 276 gears. And I believe this one is equipped with what they call that Sure Grip Posi traction rear end, so pretty cool stuff. You also got front discs in this car. The Imperials at the time had 4-wheel discs, which made them a rarefied thing. You know, only the Corvettes, those Crosleys, there weren't many cars at the time that had 4-wheel discs. When the Imperial went the way of the Dodo Bird in 75 and the New Yorker replaced it in 76, they took the 4-wheel disc back out of it, the cheap bastards. And, it just went on with that. And of course, people bought those cars. 76 and 77 New Yorkers sold very well because they were essentially the Imperials, a little bit decontented, but you could get as much crap on them as you wanted with the option package. So for Chrysler at the time in a full-size car, they didn't sell too bad. You could see whoever owned this was just a tedious, annoying person. They used one of those label makers from the 70s that I wish I had one now because I'd play with it all day. It tells you where to keep the coolant level. Yep, I absolutely love it. There's the 440 emission sticker, and over here. What was this? That conversion of air conditioning, a retrofit to 134. So somebody updated the air. I had to put an alternator on it, a starter, one of these ignition modules. We put that on the back, and the thing runs great. But it uses a recirculating ball steering setup, which is very luxurious, you know, feels like a Mercedes, and actually has a surprising lack of, you know, like I've gotten in some early 80s Datsuns that had less power steering feel than this thing. So, you know, they really didn't overboost the power steering the way they could. You do have the dual circuit brakes, again, with front discs, and torsion bars up front. That's, of course, a classic Chrysler thing. Body on frame design, leaf springs in the back, and just a, you know, a very exceptional C-body traditional Chrysler setup that's quite nice. You got the hidden wipers back there. That's great. And under the hood, you can see everything's nice and tidy. This is a true original Survivor, this car. I believe it's original paint, and really is something that somebody kept quite nice and probably garaged. That big dual piston compressor does provide pretty good air conditioning, I have to say, and everything looking lovely under the hood. I also like the big turn signal indicators that this car has. They don't use that whatever the hell you call it, the oh God, what is it? It doesn't matter. Anyway, the GM cars used a version that had fiber optic. This uses actual bulbs in there, and they're like H4 headlights. When you turn on your signals at night, you know your signals are on. And that's probably why Cadillac owners drove with their turn signals on all the way down from Ohio to Florida, and the Chrysler guys didn't. So anyway, there it is. I'm going to pause it for a minute, and then we're going to hop inside, have a look around, and go for a drive. So bear with me. All right, let's have a look inside. I like the big chrome, beefy door handles. Okay, again, as a St. Regis Coupe, this had that white split bench vinyl seat, power on the driver's side, all very, very nice stuff. Gold carpet, gold seat belts, you know, gold dash, just kind of a nice conflict of colors that looks pretty good. Probably better than the black version did. The door panels have this sort of interesting hieroglyphic-y kind of stuff on it. You've got pretty standard looking pulls there, and a little crack in the armrest, but not bad for the age. You've got your power windows, window lock, mirror control stuff there. You've got a neat little pull handle there with, you know, wood, fake wood trim, which all looks good. The interior lights are all working. They look nice. You got carpet at the bottom. There you see the seat controls and the 3-point seat belts. You've got the dual line thing sort of etched into the backrests, which looks pretty good. And I mean, look, man, if you're a Canadian in you're going to like a Linda Ronstadt or Crystal Gale concert, you are going to be happy as a clam back there. I mean, you could fit 3. You can consummate your relationship, no problem. It's got 4 different speaker grills up there, so you can have your quadrasonic sound. You got more rooks and lions, you know, in the back of the seat. You got a big armrest that comes down for your tired Canadian arms to hold a beer can. You got ashtrays on both sides because, of course, people still smoked, and you can't open them, but they're there. I don't think anyone's opened it in years. I can't get it. And we'll figure that out. But anyway, you got ashtrays over there if you can get them open. And you got all kinds of leg room. For a 2-door, it's ridiculous. I mean, you could fit 6 people in this thing. So not only is it longer than a Suburban, it holds the same number of people, basically. You got carpet on the back of the seats, all very nice stuff. And, you know, everything looking as it should. And you can sort of glare out the opera windows and hang your dry cleaning from the little hook up there. Front seats, you know, they're not really big on sporty support. It's just sort of, you know, sit in your lazy boy and feel pretty good about life and everything looking nice. Dashboard seems to be in good shape. These earlier ones don't crack much, which is nice, so everything looking good. Yeah, okay, so let's just go quick over the controls. So we've got lights here. You've got your sentinel display, or delay they call it. That was a optional thing that will turn your lights on or off for you. All you have to do is click that little side switch up. You don't worry about it. Just leave that and off. If you want to manually do it, you pull. And now the lights will turn on or off as you want. I mean, this is a very modern thing a lot of cars have, but of course it was more hipster at this point. Weird spot. This is the photo cell that turns the lights on and off when it senses whether it's dark or not. And on it, they've put the adjustment for how long you want the lights to stay on or off. So you can have them late or early. So if you put them here, they're going to shut off pretty quick. You put them here, they're going to shut off a bit later. When I first got in the car, I couldn't figure out what the hell that was. You got a pretty standard rear view mirror. You've got no mirrors on your visors, at least on this side. This had a big naggy seatbelt thing. Apparently, we even had to fasten the seatbelt just to start the car. And I imagine 99.9% of people disabled it, as was apparently done in this car. Somebody may correct me on that, but when I read the owner's manual, you actually had to click the belt to get it to start, and that is no longer the case. Over here, you have another sun visor. You see it had an accessory mirror. Dalton didn't bother to clean the rest of it because, you know, why bother? You have full gauges. You've got temperature. You don't have numbers, but they are moving needles. You got an alternator. You got your fuel gauge, of course. You've got an in-dash chronometer that works intermittently. I could hear it last night when I was driving around, then it just stopped. So right now it's 9:36 forever. Even though the 55 came out in 74, nobody was prepared for it. So this still has this 120 mile an hour speedometer with no indication for 55. So you just have to know it's between 50 and 60. Later on, thank God, the government got involved and made sure that people knew 55 was between those two numbers. And they actually put their own little thing there to make sure that people would get that. You also have your interesting PRN D21 indicator, sort of in its own little wood-trimmed and chromed box. This one does have cruise control, which you can set, and haven't tried it. It might work. We'll see. Maybe give it a shot. I don't know. I guess that's how you turn it on, with the set button. So we'll give that a shot when we're driving. Somebody must have replaced the radio, and I love it because it still has the sort of period-correct Jensen cassette deck, which it's just neat, man. You could tell Jensen was more of a high-end maker at this point. Fits in the dash beautifully and looks good. And I love the way they've tucked the power antenna switch there on the side where it's hard to see. You've got auto temp, which is kind of a climate control type thing. You got an ashtray here. Lighter. Doesn't look like it was used as much as it should be for a 70s car. You got a remote mirror over there, which, you know, again, all this stuff seems standard now, but it was pretty good equipment at the time. Makers were parsimonious with their gear, and this one is fairly well equipped. I don't know why they don't have an ashtray, or an ashtray, a glove box up here in all this room. They just have this brome thing with the lions, and they put what really seems like a little ashtray down there. Ashtray. A little glove box down there. But anyway, let's fire this up. And I brought a cassette to see if this tape deck works. So apparently it also has a full, I'm not going to do it now, but the fuse box under there will flip down, actually come down to make it easier to get at, which I think is an absolutely fantastic feature. Genuinely. I mean, I hate getting up. You know, at my age, lying down on the carpet to look up at a fuse box is a pain in the ass. The idea that they'd have one that that sort of came down for you just makes it easy. So let's stick this in, see what we got. Alright, so our cassette deck still works. We got ABBA playing away. We got a power antenna that does seem to still be working. And let's get a little bit of air conditioning going this morning, because it is pretty friggin' hot and sweaty right now. Alright, column shift. Nice. Let's go for a drive. I love looking over the vista. This reminds me actually of the 80s town cars with that V-shaped hood and the knife-edged fenders on either side. I think that looks absolutely terrific, and it does give you a lovely, nice vista to look out at it through the hood of this car. I'm not going to sit here and wait for the gate with you guys. It's sunny. Dalton's windshield sucked, so I'm going to pause here. We'll pick it up again at the end of the street when we turn right, so bear with me a moment. All right, let's do this. So as I said, the steering effort is, you know, I mean, it's easy, but it's not as easy as it could be. It's a little bit surprising, and actually feels, I mean, I won't call it responsive, but it's requires a little bit more effort than just spinning it with your pinky would be what you're expecting. The pep is epic, man. I mean, you've got this big 440 under here. Obviously, the car weighs 5,000 pounds, and it's geared for the highway, so it'll probably run, you know, 110. So your acceleration is not, you know, muscle car level or anything, but it's more than enough to get you rolling, get this big, massive metal moving down the road, and that's, you know, that's really all you need. What a cruiser. I mean, that is the neatest thing about this car, is where you just sort of sit back in this big, comfortable leather, actually it's vinyl seat. You got big over-assisted brakes, which because they're discs feel pretty good. They feel modern, and you know, the steering effort's good. The air conditioning's cold. The power, it's modern enough to make it a cruiser where it feels nice to drive the thing. And man, do you get a lot of thumbs up, and you know, people who find, wow, what's that thing? And oh my God, what a cool looking car. And well, that's not my thing. I understand why they're doing it. The big, look at the indicators. Now you can even see them super well from here. I mean, this thing lights up like a 747 at night. I mean, it's shocking. And the ones in the Cadillacs at the time just don't have the same level of brightness. So that's, you know, Chrysler putting big bulbs in those housings instead of the fiber optic setup. You do feel a menacing growl from that. I mean, so again, I mean, 440 cubic inches. I mean, not only is it a great historical engine size, it's a big-ass motor. And, of course, the 727 torque flight is, and I should have done that high torque starter. I should have mentioned that. That's very particular to Chrysler, and it sounds cool when you fire these things up. But it's just a neat car to drive, and you can see why Mopar is its own thing and why it has such a strong following. And you know, if you're not going to be in a 69 Charger with a Hemi or something, this would be a nice way to cruise around. And another nice stable made for your old muscle car collection. But anyway, there it is. Let's see if we can get a little pass here. There's our kickdown. Yeah, and I mean, it's not fast. I mean, this thing is trying to you know, pick up a bunch of weight, so it does motivate it down the road, but it ain't gonna break your neck or anything as you accelerate. But man, what a nice cruiser. So anyway, there it is, and I'll try to pick up a little highway thing on the way, but again, sorry for the really, you know, intermittent videos. I know I haven't been up to snuff lately. Big changes coming, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully well, but probably not, because, you know, I don't have great luck. But we're going to give it a shot. And we'll try to come up with some more fun stuff to do in the meantime. I'll try to keep at least one video a week going until whatever new setup happens. God, this is just fun to drive. So anyway, really appreciate it. Thank you for having a look. This one will be for sale. I'm not sure if it'll be on the Auto House website or not, but the guys, if you call them, will know what's up with it. So 239, what the hell is their number? 239-285. I'm telling you, man. Oh my God. Again, look, just go to autohousenaples.com and you'll find everything that you need to find. Thank you very much for having a look. Really appreciate it. And we will see you with the next one. Take care. It's, by the way, it's 239-263-8500. See you next time.